Shabbat Shalom. This week's Parsha is Parshat Vayigash. And before we get into the actual Parsha, I want to ask a question. What is memory? And how does memory work? Our brains are a jumble of nerves and wires and synapses and neurons and chemicals which fire between synapses. How does memory work? And how do we use memory? And it seems to me that the answer to this question begins to explain much of what exchanges between Yosef and his brothers. Because this week's Parsha picks up at the climax of the scene between the confrontation between Joseph and his brothers, as for some time now, Joseph has been playing this cat and mouse game with his brothers, tormenting them, actually, in ways that could be cruel, accusing them of being spies, planting the money and a goblet in somebody's bag, and then hiding his identity from them. But in this week's Parsha, we have the climax, when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, and they embrace and they weep. And so we come back to our question. How does memory work? When Yosef is looking at his brothers, and he hears them talk about how they're not going to make the same mistake again and cause pain to their old father like they did all those years ago with Yosef. What is it that Yosef remembers? He certainly could remember all of the evil that they did to him. Throwing him into the pit, threatening to kill him, abandoning him and casting him away and selling him into slavery. He could remember all of that, and he would be right to. But it seems to me that Yosef remembers them for good. He chooses not to remember the bad things they did, but the good things. And what is it that caused Yosef to choose those memories? This is what I think it is. The text begins, Vayigash Yehuda, and Yehuda approaches Joseph. And he says, "My Lord, may I speak in your ear?" And Rashi points out that it couldn't possibly mean, "Come, bend forward so that I can whisper in your ear and you and I can have a secret." But Yehuda says, "Let me speak in your ear. Let your ears hear what I am going to say. Pay attention to my words. Because what I'm going to say is the most important thing I've ever said in my life." Vayigash Yehuda. Yehuda approached Yosef. Yehuda was prepared to cross that boundary and make himself vulnerable to who, in Yehuda's experience, is the most powerful man in the world. Vayigash Yehuda. He came forward, close, to speak into Yosef's ear. And at that moment, Yosef melted. All the animosity, all the rehearsed pains and wounds gone in that instant. And I think that's the lesson. We have the power to choose memory. In spite of how the wiring in our brain works, we can choose what to remember. And we can help others to remember us only for good. Only if, like Yehuda, we are prepared to cross that boundary, to come close, to speak gently into people's ears, and to make ourselves vulnerable. And when we do, only good will come, and reconciliation and healing. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Shabbat Shalom. May you have a Zis and Shabbos, and I'll see you in Shul.